It is possible also that devices can be made whereby, without bodily danger, a man may walk on the bottom of the sea or of a river. Infinite other things can be made, as bridges over rivers without columns or supports, and machines and unheard-of engines. While Onnaucourt, whose sketchbook we have compared with Leonardo's, gives a page to a perpetual motion machine, using an odd number of mallets and quicksilver. Alchemists pondered the emerald table attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, seeking talismanic keys, not so much to make gold and silver, Ashmole would write centuries after, as to see the heavens open, the angels of God ascending and descending. A sacred hermetic text, a body of chemical operations, stinks and all, a heavenly vision of God. If such is the anagogical synthesis of Ars Antiqua, small wonder the myth of Faust has been called a Western archetype. What Renaissance requires, as much as anything else, is the filling in between disjunct poles of the daily fabric of mundane good. Here English Gothic, by the modesty with which it clings to Romanesque proportion, quietly prepares for Renaissance. In the articulation of Wells, there is none of that high Gothic extravagance which in France and Cologne made the apse a displayed scaffold of support. Some social and pastoral well-being is reflected here, as in the early developments of English law. At the same time, English polyphony humanizes the gentler peripheral style of note against note Romanesque by a decisive filling in of triadic chords. The sharp brilliance of passing tones in the French Salve Virgo, already heard, shifts in an English motet, also of the 13th century, on the same words, and sung by the same Munich group, to a firm reliance on major chords. Here are the two openings. The purest gem of Worcester 13th century harmony, O Maria Virgo Pia, seems unrecorded. Michael and Pamela Sloper sing it for me, while the Madonna Tristram copied from the wall of the Bishop's Palace in Chichester suggests the human sweetening in English manuscripts or in the paintings that survive from late Romanesque and early Gothic. By 1300, English ivories have the line and smile of the French, but with more directness of love. In music, the Worcester Alleluia Psallat, about the same time, gives natural intimacy to Gothic joy, a joy especially in the old Cape performance.
Alleluia,
English manuscripts also take the quickening lead. With the new century, sacred pages open to a springtime of love and the chase. A first harvest of poems voices the mood. Between a March and Avril, when spray begins to spring, the little fool hath here a will on here a lute to sing. Ich leb in loflonging for semlukest of alle thing, he me blisse bring, ich ha min hier bandun. An handy hab ich hent, ich hört from heaven it is me sent, fro alle women me lof is lent, and licht on alle soon. Most famous is the Reading Rota, Summa is the comin in, with alternate words in pious Latin. The first piece of 6-part writing, the first developed canon, the first clear example of the major mode. If only the London madrigalists had known how to pronounce the words. English genius was already operating in a context of temporal correlatives, which would produce in Austen the familial weaving and balancing Nietzsche had in mind when he said, with some incomprehension of the phenomenon, that the British were a nation of shopkeepers. Though the visionary wildness which would complement Austen with Blake was always there, Lincoln Choir, so the first Middle English poem, On the Coming of Winter, sounds the biblical expulsion. Merry it is, while summery last, with vogel's song. Ach, no naketh windes blast, and weather's strong. What this nicht is long, and ich with well michel wrong, sorg and mourn and fast. Against such precursive reach within the severities of faith, can we bear the shock of what has claimed Gothic affinities, the sensuous flagrance of 19th century, where every modern soul has fledged its life dreams? Courbet with his love, the Opera of Paris, Maya Belle's Tu l'as dit, l'amour. Yet it is no accident that the word for all that, romantic, springs from medieval romance, the cult of nature and heart felt through the veilings of this other synagogue at Bamberg, as through the forest childhood of Parsifal after his father's battle death. Day's sun to the queen became a mist. She fled the world and all its bliss, wandered deep in her forest land, not to pick flowers from its ground. There she reared Gamuret's child, far from the knighthood of the world. Deprived of his heritage of prowess, he carved himself a bow and arrows, shot at the birds he came upon. But when he saw them stop their song and flutter downward, he would weep and tear his hair in childish grief. Then mornings when he bathed at the river, and the birds sang, such a sweetness pierced his heart, he ran to his mother in tears, and could not tell his sorrow. We have followed the cropping out of Gothic energies in the formal frame. To close the 13th century, let us line up from the continent 4 moments in which ars antiqua approaches the riper fruition the age of Dante would bring in. This synagogue may stand for the German characterizations of Bamberg and Naumburg, including the Uta we have already seen. A Reims Christ after 1260 goes as far the other way, toward outward drama. From the late century then, Princess Violante from Burgos, and from Regensburg, a mythic queen, while the music is a love motet from the end of the century, Dieu, comment peut, with haunting tritones and a climax moment when the voice soars, though not in a romantic soaring.
D'amour d'aimer, trop il convient peine endurée, en choix qu'on y puisse, guerre de douceur trouvée, bien fut dit aimer, car on y trouve trop d'aimer, pour se mestuer à bon amour clamé de celle qui tend à la vie claire, car ton sévère loyalement ouvré, que j'en puisse par cruauté trouver, souvent me fait chétif clamer, regretter et réclamer la mort qu'on ne me vient accorder. Ainsi me convient nuit et jour dans l'oser, et si n'ose de rien madame blâmer, un semestre veut ou non à l'y accorder, et sa grande beauté recordée, que avec ma douleur me fait désirer d'un goût savouré, que ne veut nommer, mais c'est les pour l'honneur, madame, gardez.
Bavaria, 1290, Queen Emma, and the mysticism of chivalric love refines to a threshold of consciousness, dicendo all'anima sospira, speaking to the soul, sigh. It is the threshold of Beatrice and of Petrarch's Laura. And we have only to cross the Alps at that charged turn of the century to find another world. In this Giovanni Pisano, in Dante, Giotto, Simone Martini, as in the music of Da Cascia, the mystery of Gothic kindles to an aesthetic passion which the sensuous soul can see and hear and touch.